You're standing in a grocery store at 11 at night, the only customer in the whole place besides a stock clerk restocking cereal, and you're holding two nearly identical packages of chicken thighs, doing real math in your head, actual math, comparing the price per pound down to the cent, the way you've done in every grocery store you've ever stood in since you were 19 years old. You know, somewhere in the back of your mind, that the difference between these two packages is 11 cents. You know, with even more certainty, that 11 cents has not mattered to your actual financial life in over a decade. And you also know, standing there under the fluorescent lights at 11 at night, that you are going to put back the more expensive package anyway, not because you need to, but because some old, wired-in part of you still runs this calculation automatically, the way your lungs still breathe without you telling them to. $50.6 million, across a mix of index funds, 2 rental properties, and a stake in the consulting firm you still technically co-own. You built almost all of it over 18 years, starting from genuinely nothing, a childhood where the 11-cent math wasn't a quirk, it was survival, the actual difference some weeks between 3 meals and 2. You crossed the $1 million mark at 31. You crossed 10 million at 38. And at every single mark along the way, you kept doing the same 11-cent math in the cereal aisle, the same math your mother taught you without meaning to, the same math that got you here and never once figured out it was allowed to stop. The habits that save you from nothing are the exact same habits that eventually try to save you from money you've already made. Nobody warns you that the mindset doesn't know when the war is over. It just keeps fighting the last one, forever, unless you catch it and tell it to stand down. This is the part almost nobody who hasn't lived it believes. The scarcity doesn't leave when the money arrives. It just goes quiet for a while, and then it finds new, smaller, stranger places to keep living, right alongside a bank account that could absorb almost anything you'd ever need to throw at it. You grew up watching your mother do this exact math, in this exact kind of store, under these exact lights, and you understand now, decades later, that you didn't inherit a bank account from her. You inherited a nervous system, fully calibrated, fully functional, built for a threat that no longer exists in your actual life but never got the memo. She raised you and your brother alone on a nurse's aide salary, in an apartment where the heat got shut off twice one winter you still remember with a specificity that surprises you, the exact texture of sleeping in 3 layers, the exact sound the radiator used to make right before it worked again. She did the 11-cent math because 11 cents mattered, every single week, in ways that could tip a Tuesday from fine into genuinely bad. You watched her do it 1,000 times before you turned 10, and somewhere in there, without either of you deciding it, the habit transferred, cleanly, the way habits do between people who love each other and share a kitchen. You remember the exact moment you first noticed the habit had outlived its purpose, standing in a different grocery store 7 years after your first real payday, comparing 2 brands of olive oil over a 40-cent difference, and catching yourself mid-calculation, actually catching yourself, and thinking, with something between amusement and unease, that you just spent 90 seconds of your one finite life protecting 40 cents from a bank account that could currently absorb the entire store without blinking. You don't choose the mindset that gets installed in you before the age of 10. You only get to choose, much later, whether you notice it's still running, decades after the actual danger it was built for has completely disappeared. The habit shows up in stranger places than groceries, the further the number climbs, and the strangest one you ever catch yourself in happens the year you cross $10 million, at your own accountant's office, of all places. Desmond, who's managed your finances for over a decade by this point, walks you through the year-end numbers and mentions, almost as an aside, that you've been sitting on an unusually large cash position for someone at your level of assets, more than triple what any reasonable emergency fund would require. Money that's been earning essentially nothing for 3 straight years while sitting idle instead of invested. He asks, gently, professionally, whether there's a specific reason you've kept it there instead of putting it to work. You don't have a good answer, not a real one, not at first. You tell him something vague about liquidity, about wanting options, and he nods, patient, the way he always is. But you can tell he's heard a version of this exact excuse from other clients before, clients who came from nothing the same way you did, clients whose money grew faster than their nervous systems ever managed to catch up with. Driving home that night, you actually sit with the question honestly for the first time, and the real answer arrives slowly, uncomfortably. The oversized cash cushion isn't a strategy. It's the 11-cent math wearing a much more expensive disguise, the same scarcity instinct that used to protect 40 cents on olive oil, now protecting several $1 million from a threat that, by any objective measure, no longer exists in your life at all. Money that's been earning nothing for years while a person quietly reassures themselves it's just in case isn't caution. It's the poverty mindset scaled up, wearing a suit made of 7 figures instead of small change, and it costs infinitely more to maintain at that size than it ever did in the cereal aisle. Your business partner, Aaliyah, built her fortune the opposite way, inheriting a modest but real cushion from her own upbringing, and watching how differently the same amount of money moves through the two of you has taught you more about this whole mindset than any book or course ever could. At a conference 2 years ago, the two of you split a hotel bill for a shared suite, and you watch her order room service without checking a single price, a genuinely unremarkable act to her, and you notice, in real time, the specific flicker of resistance that runs through you before you let yourself order anything at all, a flicker she simply doesn't have. Because nobody ever installed it in her the way your mother's kitchen installed it in you. You mentioned this to her once, honestly, over drinks, half joking about your own 11-cent math, and she tells you something that reframes the whole thing for you, delivered without any judgment at all, just genuine curiosity from someone who's never lived on the other side of it. I don't think about money as dangerous, she says. I think about it as available. That's it. That's the whole difference. It's not that I don't respect it. I just never learned to be afraid of it in the first place. You think about that phrase for months afterward, dangerous versus available, because it names something you never quite had language for. Every financial decision you make, even now, at $50 million, runs through a filter Aaliyah's decisions never have to pass through at all, a filter built from an entirely different childhood, one where money was the thing standing between your family and disaster rather than simply a tool sitting in a drawer, ready to be used. Two people can have the exact same amount of money and be running two completely different operating systems underneath it. The number doesn't overwrite the software. It just runs on top of it, forever, unless you go back and rewrite the code by hand. The moment you actually decide to do something about this, deliberately, rather than just noticing it with mild amusement every few years, happens at your daughter's 10th birthday party, watching her interact with money in a way that stops you cold. A friend at the party gives her a $20 bill as a gift, folded into a card, and you watch your daughter's face do something you recognize instantly and painfully, a flicker of real anxiety, brief but unmistakable, about where to put it, whether to spend it, whether spending it on the wrong thing would somehow be a mistake she couldn't undo. She's 10 years old. She has never once, in her entire life, gone without anything material. And she is running some early, smaller version of the exact same 11-cent math you've been running since before she was born, and you understand, watching her fold that $20 bill with visibly careful hands, that you didn't just inherit this mindset. You've been quietly installing it in her too, without ever meaning to, the same way it got installed in you. You sit with her that night, after the party, and ask her, gently, what she was thinking about with the money, and she tells you, in the specific plain language 10-year-olds use, that she didn't want to get it wrong. That she wasn't sure if she was supposed to save it, or if saving it was somehow the wrong choice too. You realize, listening to her, that some tone in your own voice, some tension you didn't know you were carrying, has been teaching her the exact anxiety you've spent years trying, imperfectly, to unlearn in yourself. The scarcity mindset doesn't just outlive the scarcity in your own life. Left unexamined, it becomes the inheritance you pass down next, to someone who never had a single real reason to learn it at all. You start, after that night, doing something deliberate for the first time in your adult life, a small daily practice you never would have believed you'd need at $50 million. You catch the 11-cent math out loud, every time you notice it, and you name it, quietly, to yourself, the way you'd name any other habit you were trying to break. In the grocery store, you start actually buying the more expensive chicken thighs, every time, specifically as practice, a small deliberate rep against a decades-old reflex, and you notice, the first several times, an actual physical discomfort in doing it, a real, low-grade anxiety that has nothing to do with the 11 cents and everything to do with unwinding wiring that took your whole childhood to install. With Desmond, you finally move the oversized cash position, not all at once, but gradually, deliberately, forcing yourself to sit with the discomfort of watching a number you built into a security blanket shrink on purpose, and you notice, months later, that the anxiety you expected to feel permanently actually faded, the way most fears fade once you finally test them against reality, and nothing bad happens. With your daughter, you start narrating your own decisions out loud in front of her, deliberately, the way you never had a parent narrate theirs in front of you. We're buying this one because we like it, not because it's the cheapest, and that's allowed. Small, repeated sentences designed to install a completely different piece of software than the one you're still, slowly, uninstalling from yourself. You can't undo 18 years of a nervous system built around danger with a single insight in a grocery store. You can only, deliberately, repeatedly, choose the more expensive chicken thighs enough times that the choosing eventually stops requiring any courage at all. You're back in that same grocery store a year later, 11 at night again, the same stock clerk restocking the same cereal, and you catch yourself reaching for the cheaper package of chicken thighs out of pure habit, the old wiring still there, still functional, probably never fully gone no matter how many years you put into this. You stop yourself. You put the cheaper package back. You take the other one instead, the small, deliberate rep you've done maybe 200 times now over the past year, and it costs you, this time, almost nothing at all, no anxiety, no internal negotiation, just a plain, ordinary choice made by someone who no longer needs to fight a war that ended years before he finally noticed it was over. You think, walking out to your car, about your mother, gone 6 years now, doing this exact math in this exact kind of store for the entire length of your childhood, not because she was foolish or small, but because she was protecting something real, something that mattered enormously at the time, in the only way she had available to her. You've spent $50 million worth of distance from that danger, and it took you almost as long as it took to earn the money to finally believe, all the way down, that the danger itself was actually gone. You drive home. Your daughter's asleep by the time you get there, a $20 bill from some other birthday sitting, unfolded now, loosely in a drawer in her room, spent or saved, you're honestly not sure which, and for the first time in longer than you can remember, you understand that not knowing, and not needing to know, might be the actual inheritance you've finally managed to leave her instead.